Today, we're going to be talking about 3 types of simps that black men must avoid or avoid becoming at all costs, and also how simps harm the black community. I'm your host, Cool Colas, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. So let's get into it. Let's be real. Simp has turned into somewhat of a buzzword at this point. And for a lot of women, it's a trigger word. Although I think everyone defines it somewhat differently, the core of what this word means overall is in the same ballpark with everyone. But you know how we do on the Cool Colas channel. We take time to define and explain our reasoning for everything that we do. The Cool Colas definition of a simp is a man who either excessively showers a woman with rewards and or fails to confront a woman, especially when accountability is what is most needed in that situation. Simping is typically done for the purpose of appeasement. And typically it's also done while ignoring healthy boundaries and ultimately prime standards that a man should uphold. A lot of people hear the word simp and they think that it's just some goofy ass dude who buys women gifts and begs for attention and has no standards. But the conversation around that should be a lot deeper than just that. Because when I talk about simps, I'm not just talking about a man who loves a woman too much. I'm talking about a type of black man who compromises truth, accountability, and the respect for other black men in exchange for validation, approval, peace, social currency, workplace safety, female attention, or status. They are dangerous because they are desperate for a woman's approval in different ways. And all of these things really lead to intangible nothing burgers. And they definitely don't get the result that they're clearly and so desperately trying to get. Simps tend to create a culture where bad behavior gets protected or ignored, real concerns cannot be addressed properly, and other black men get demonized for simply standing on business. To be honest, there are really 6 types of simps that a man can be categorized into, but today we're going to talk about 3. The first type of simp that a black man can be categorized into is the Game Goofy Simp. Now let me explain what that is. We're going to go ahead and start with the most basic form of a simp that most folks know and hate. To be honest, I usually have the most empathy for this type of simp over the others because they are really only harming themselves and not really doing it at others' expenses. Now, I will say that it could have later effects, but we'll get into that as we talk about this topic. And usually it's because he's either been mistaught the game or he's just moving without much direction and knowing how to deal with women. But again, we'll also get into that later as well, too. Now, this simp isn't necessarily malicious. He's just got the game all twisted. This is the Negro who thinks that he's playing the game, but more often than not, he's just playing his damn self. He overextends himself, he loses leverage, and he creates what really is a fake economy of exchange. So this is the guy who showers women with gifts, attention, money, favors, access to him, rides, meals, emotional labor, and all types of shit. And sometimes he gives her a lot of resources, opportunities, and just in general, way too much energy. A lot of times, though, this abundance is not even really deserved. Now, there's some folks that will hear this and they'll say, well, maybe he's just being generous. But it's really beyond that. He is investing with an expectation. Like just about everybody else, he wants something in return for what he's doing. So for him, it's usually he wants loyalty, validation, appreciation, a relationship, and in most cases, he wants some ass. But real accountability requires portion control, standards, timing, discernment, and boundaries. See, a brother with real game understands that not everyone deserves access to you. Not every woman deserves abundance, and not every interaction needs to be turned into a rescue mission or some type of weird ass sponsorship package or some shit. But the Game Goofy Simp does not understand that. He wants to buy favor. He wants to front load value. He wants to create debt that nobody asked for. He wants to make his overextension mean something. And when it doesn't work, he either becomes bitter, passive aggressive, resentful, or he starts acting like he got used. Now, we do have to ask the question, did he really get used? In a lot of cases, he did. He also lacked discernment and control and put himself in a situation that he didn't have to. Because when a man has no portion control and no boundaries, he helps create a culture where women that are in their lives don't have to provide some level of value and can just use him up. And it ultimately turns into a thing where they don't respect him. And for some women, it even gives a sense of entitlement, and they carry that attitude with other men that they deal with, which is a bigger problem that he created in the long run. But one thing that we have to stop doing with this type of brother, and I'm just going to be honest with y'all, is acting like all this shit came out of thin air and that it really just started with them. There was nothing that happened before then, and it all was just him. He's the main culprit. Now, I usually am not a fan personally of parental upbringing shaming because folks can't help how they grow up and they can't help how they were raised or who they were raised by. But often dudes like this are either raised by single mothers or in a few cases, highly entitled married mothers with simp ass fathers. And usually what I came to learn is that in the case of a single mother, they either tend not to arm their sons with the game they need to deal with other women, on purpose usually, or they raise them to be the man that they wish their father would have been, even if it's unrealistic and harmful to their son's life. And these young dudes usually aren't taught the error of their ways. They are hyper criticized and shamed before they can learn and grow. And then people just say, well, this is your learning and growth. I'm criticizing you. And the world tends to do this Frankenstein shit with brothers where they're upset with the monster for being a monster while the scientist who made the damn monster can act like a victim or can act obtuse and everybody turns a blind eye to the shit. But regardless of all that, the Game Goofy Simping shit needs to be nipped in the bud expeditiously. Because if not, it will become a problem in other areas of their life as well too. It won't be just for women. They'll start carrying this into the workplace and just how they start dealing with people in general. The thing is, balance and self-care are essential as a man, especially as a black man. It's 10 times worse for us. It's cool to do fly shit for a woman that you love here or there, but it's not cool to just be a cup that motherfuckers drink out of, but nobody pours back into you. The second type of simp is the workplace simp. Now understand, black men who are workplace simps have a few different ways that they show up, but generally speaking, they have the same goal. Usually, that difference is created when one behaves in malice versus behaving in ignorance. The ignorant workplace simp can be any age, but they have a specific goal in mind when they're doing their simping. See, this type of simp usually is an underperformer at the job, and most of it is because of where his head is at while he's on the job. The ignorant workplace simp is not concerned about results and being the best employee. He's concerned about building connections and ultimately social currency. As a result, they throw out the necessary boundaries that men need to have when dealing with women and just people in general in the workplace. And what it boils down to is they are focused on getting some ass and not on leadership like they should. So usually this type of dude is trying to make connections with the women at the workplace, and he tries to become their friend, and he even gets in good or tries to get in good with multiple different groups of women. And they violate things that most men should know not to violate when it comes to boundaries in the workplace. I mean, they don't understand this idea that you have no friends in the workplace. They also don't understand that you do not shit where you eat. One of the most important things that they forget is that you have to set firm boundaries, especially when sex gets involved in the equation. And what I mean by that is not even this idea of you're trying to fuck somebody in the workplace, but just simple shit. Like, for example, one thing that I do not do is if there is an office space, unless like there's a meeting and I just obviously can't help it, I will never be alone with a female coworker just in a casual or general conversation. I won't do no shit like that where something can get placed on me or to say that maybe I did some sexual harassment type shit. Because not only does that threaten my job, but the police could get involved in all types of shit. And you just don't want that shit on your head. But usually, this type of simp does favors for women on the job, both personally and professionally. And usually, when it's professional, they'll allow themselves to be the go-to errand boy. If they are a manager, though, they will give women at the job passes, especially when they are disrespectful or when they have a behavior that's harmful to the clients or other coworkers at the job. They make terrible leaders because they don't know how to stand on business and check these types of things. And women can smell this type of dude a mile away. And most of them will see it and they'll exploit it because many of them operate in the workplace on likability and manipulation when they know this dude is around. And we're talking about the toxic women who do this type of shit. Mind you, I'm going to say this too. Although I'm talking about black men, any type of man of any race can be a simp. Black men specifically become prime targets to be weeded out the fastest, and this type of thing is used against them. So when they are simping, it's usually worse for them than it is for other races of men. Remember, if the dominant society even sees you as a slight bit of a problem or unhelpful, most likely they're heavily going to use that against you as a black man. Because they already nitpick at every little fucking thing that you do. I mean, literally, you could, as I told y'all in a previous video, eat lunch by yourself and they're wondering what the fuck is wrong with you. And with the ignorant workplace simp, they're more likely to be blindsided by it all when shit hits the fan. Now, the malicious workplace simp is a little different. Usually, this person is a hater. And like the ignorant workplace simp, they are obsessed with building connections and social currency, but they're a sneaky little bitch about it. If anything, they become the bitch that's embracing his inner bitch. They want to be seen as respected and trusted leaders. But again, they do it through female approval, and they have a sneaky bitch-ass way of going about it. When they first meet you, they come off like a relatable or likable homeboy. And this simp will smile in your face and they'll even act like they're cool with you at first. But when they get comfortable, that's when shit gets real. Often, their biggest targets are other black men. And if you are a brother who is masculine, well-dressed, well-groomed, and articulate, they'll view you as a force to be reckoned with, and ultimately, they'll start being on some hater shit. And they know that the honeys will start choosing on you, so that's why they start doing all this stuff. And some of them will even go as far as to lean heavily into flattery, but of course in a more masculine way. But they have steps to their madness and what they're trying to do. The first thing that they typically will do is gossip like little bitches with you, like they're on code with you or some shit, or like they're your boy. But when they get around people at the job, they'll start doing little slick shit like trying to embarrass you in front of people. Or they'll nitpick at the things that you do and say on some hater shit. So they'll start mimicking the practices of the dominant society to a certain extent. But with the dominant society, it's racism. But with them, it's because they're trying to get access to some ass. They'll be passive aggressive and make little slick ass comments like a bitch for a quick laugh. And they'll also attempt to make themselves seem smarter and sharper than you while making you look dumb in the process. And they love to do it around these little white women for some reason as well, too. The last thing to remember, though, is a dog who goes to retrieve a bone is probably going to carry it back. So what I'm telling you is don't tell these silly ass negroids anything because they will start telling your business. And shit, I'll even say this, even if you don't tell them shit, they'll try to start putting random shit and random rumors out there, which is really some bitch shit. Basically, these Negroes are like Wile E. Coyote with an anvil tied to a damn rope above, waiting to drop that shit on you in the dark. And then the nigga will be there in the back giggling like a schoolgirl in the miniskirt on with the ass cheeks tooted in the air. But when push comes to shove, This simp is going to side with the workplace, especially when it comes to dealing with the women in the workplace if shit goes down with you. Now, don't get me wrong, white boys will do this shit too, and sometimes they'll even do it more frequently. Hell, I remember at this one job, I had this dude who was always on this passive aggressive shit since the minute that I met his bitch ass. For example, he was trying to go around and tell people that I was taking extra time on my lunch breaks when that wasn't a thing. And it was to the point where managers didn't even believe it was a thing. And even one time, and this was the first time I met him actually, I asked him to help me on understanding this program that we were using at this job. And another woman who was on the job had asked him a question right after I did. Although I asked that question first, he said, I'm going to help her first because she's a woman. And I'm like, so what, motherfucker? She's not going to fuck you. And this was an old white woman who I found out later was racist, by the way. And I'm like, you want that? Like, her coochie probably got mayonnaise and cobwebs all encrusted in that shit. But all right, whatever floats your boat, big dog. The last type of simp that we're going to talk about today, which is probably the most hidden one that a lot of people haven't covered before, is called the Blurred Lines Buddy Simp. Now, let me explain what that is. Another term that you could probably use for this type of simp, if you don't like that, is the Blurred Lines Best Friend Simp, because that defines it a little bit more. But anyway, as black folks, we have a level of honoring conservative values, and we often uphold conservative values. And that's not to be confused with being politically conservative per se, but we just respect a traditional way of living overall as black people. Obviously, we're all not a monolith, but for the most part, this is a common thing in the black community. But one thing that I'll say negatively about black millennials per se is, and that's my generation, we have a tendency to mix the old with the new. Sometimes they end up contradicting each other. Look at it from this standpoint. We value family, but we also value creating our own family based on the friendships that we make over time. And often these lines get blurred in some ways. I used to think that creating family out of your friends was a silver bullet to having great connections, but I'm starting to see that this also has its issues too. Now let me explain what I mean by that piece. One issue in particular is when your friends become so close to you that you're almost like brothers, or in some cases like sisters, they begin to get close with your real blood family if they're around and still in your life. And they even try to rope in their friends and their significant others, and like you all are one big happy family who supports and loves each other. Also, we as foundational black Americans have a culture of roasting, as y'all know. And we have this culture of having fun by snapping on each other and just moving on. But at times, the lines get blurred where you aren't sure if it's playful roasting or if you're just getting disrespected. What I find is that you have multiple types of BLB simps that show up in this dynamic, and usually it differs depending on the relationship status. So for example, with the simps in this category that are single, this is the dude who will call you bro and y'all hang out and y'all kick it on a regular basis. And it will almost be to the point where you're inseparable because y'all do everything together as boys. But the minute that there's a room full of people, specifically women around, some of these concepts like roasting start to come back up, but more so the blurred aspect of whether or not it's roasting or disrespect. But it's not y'all hanging out and talking shit like you normally do. It becomes this social dominance dynamic bullshit. The thing is, when social validation needs to be earned or cheap laughs need to be had, this type of individual will use you as an opportunity to do all of that. What they'll do is they'll get in there and they'll joke on you, they'll try to embarrass you, they'll try to G-check you on comments that you make, and they'll make these little slick-ass, passive-aggressive disses, and they'll just show a lot of their insecurities. And so I'll give y'all an example, too. I had this associate in college who would do this type of shit. He would kind of position himself like he was one of my friends, but he really was an associate looking back. we'd be talking to women, like it'll be a group of us and he'll be in the group. We'll be talking to women, or it could be just me and him, whatever the case is. And he'd be in there trying to shit on my gear or trying to make these smart ass remarks, or he would purposefully contradict shit that I would be trying to say to them. And he would try to do it in a matter of fact way in order to make me look bad or in order to be seen as funny or get a laugh out of me. And he would do that in the hopes that women would be checking him out and how funny he is because he was able to get a joke off on me. Another situation, I had a former friend who, when we'd go out, he would get mad disrespectful, or he would try to show out or try to turn me or our relationship into a comedy act. So for example, it was me and him with this chick that he was macking on at the time, and it was two other chicks that was in the car with us, right? So we pull up to Taco Bell to get some food. And his girl, by the way, she was a very unsavory bitch. She was rude, she was brash, she was mean, and she was quite honestly just not a good damn person. This negress was about 300 pounds with no clothes on, post-workout. She looked like a big-ass pumpkin with glasses on. She had saggy, watermelon-sized titties, and somehow she had an ass like Taylor Swift. Basically, this chick was a fat Halloween edition of Wendy Williams. So anyway, I'm about to go through the drive-thru, right? And I'm getting everybody's order because I was the one driving and I was the one who was, trying to make sure that everybody got what they wanted. So while I'm just getting everybody's stuff and whatnot, she rolls down her window and then she blurts out of nowhere. She wasn't drunk, by the way. This was just her being her. She blurts out of nowhere, y'all better hurry up with my shit. I want my tacos. Or she said some shit like that. She was just real rude. And, she, I think, was trying to be funny. I don't really know what the case was, but I wasn't really feeling it. And I had to tell her to chill too. And I'm already kind of irritated at this point because people was being indecisive. And then she was in there being rude. So my friend I just told y'all about, he wasn't getting anything, right? He wasn't trying to order anything, but he just came out of nowhere and he was just like, man, they about to spit in y'all shit and that's on y'all. I don't really give a fuck. And really it's your fault talking to me because you was supposed to be the one who was ordering for everybody and you was taking too long. So he was trying to be funny. So he made that joke, but I didn't like the way that shit felt. So I'm looking at this nigga and I'm like, no, I'm trying to order right now, but you didn't put a muzzle on your bitch. By the way, just for clarification, because I don't remember if I said it, he was trying to get on this chick. He wasn't with her yet. So that's why I said he's single. And the thing was, this wasn't a one-off. He just had a habit of doing this shit all the time. And I think it was because we had built a relationship where we were so comfortable just roasting each other just for fun and whatnot, especially when we grew up as kids. Because I grew up with him, in elementary school, middle school and stuff like that. He just felt like it was cool to basically go around and start doing this in front of other people. But I noticed that he would especially do it more when he was around women or when he thought he was going to be in a space where he could be viewed as someone who was funny. But anyway, the single BLB simp is chasing social validation. He wants the laughs, the room approval, the I'm one of the cool ones status, the female approval, the safety of just not being the one who's challenged, just the one who's respected because he's so funny. Because he teaches everybody around you that you are safe to disrespect because he did it. Once your own so-called friend starts laughing at you and undercutting you or letting people play with you, the room gets permission to do the same thing. So you're not just trying to keep boundaries up with him. You got to do it with everybody else because he thought it was cool to do that. Because they're so damn weird, you have to be able to kind of stay in your masculine frame without killing the vibe. So it turns into that type of shit. So you have to be very careful about these individuals. And that's also one of the biggest harms that simps bring to the black community. They normalize the idea that loyalty is optional, but cheap approval is everything, and they'll do it at your expense. Now, you got to be careful, though, not just about the simps that are single in this category. Now, although the single simps that are in this category are a problem, the ones that are in relationships are a problem too now. Let's not get it twisted. A lot of the ones who are in relationships, their simping started with a chick that they got with. And let me tell y'all something that you may not want to hear. The majority of the time, your friend's wife, significant other, fiance, etc. is not your friend. And this is a lesson that I personally had to learn the hard way somewhat recently. But either way, it's something to always keep in the back of your mind when we're thinking about these blurred lines. And also, this is another thing I wanted to add too. Even if you have a wife or a girlfriend yourself, you need to realize as well too, their friends are also not your friends. They may be friendly, but they're not your friends. In most cases, y'all would never hang out one-on-one. And even if you all do and it's platonic and there are no issues, especially if it's in college, because college was just kind of an experimental time, I guarantee something will absolutely change about y'all's relationship at one point. And what I mean by that is not the fact that you're going to bone her, but just the fact that at some point, the friend that you thought she was, she probably is not going to be as things progress and she steps into maybe wifehood, motherhood, or just things just happen in general. But let's just stick to your friend's girl for a second. Sometimes your friend will get with a girl who is sometimes either rather opinionated, weird, pushy, nasty, or is just willing to cross a boundary with you that rubs you the wrong way. And in some cases, you may respond to her. You may stand up for yourself. Or if it gets like that, you may G-check her if it really is just getting real. Immediately, this type of friend, instead of letting it ride out for the sake of accountability, I'm not saying like he has to embarrass her and say, yeah, you're wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I don't think that he should do that. But for the sake of accountability, instead of him just letting it ride out and talking to her later, this motherfucker will get mad at you. Type of motherfucker will be cool with allowing her to be her independent self until he thinks that you got a little bit too loud, rough, aggressive, or direct with her. And he'll try to jump into the conversation and try to micromanage the way that you said this or said that, but he just let her little ass run off at the mouth. And they get very territorial, so you have to watch out for that. So my thing with all this is when you have blurred lines, you try to make it seem like everybody's a family and everybody is accountable for each other and we all can snap on each other, we all can correct each other, we all can just have a conversation where we're real with each other. But the thing is, people will add in these dynamics in with this blurred line concept that they'll have. And ultimately, these dynamics and all of this territorialism that comes with these simps that are in relationships, or these people who are simping while they're in these relationships, comes from the idea that they are trying to maintain their status. So before, it would be a thing where we're all family, keeping it real with one another, and now there's a clear separation between friends and friend's girl. We're all not just friends and family anymore. This is your friend's wife, your friend's girl, your friend's whatever. And I guarantee this dude probably won't check her behind closed doors until he checks you first, if he checks her at all. But if she's in the wrong, all of a sudden, y'all have to share accountability. Now, on their end, I mildly understand because they're caught between a rock and a hard place and they're trying to stand in their own masculine frame. But my thing is, so am I. This is my dignity and me standing up for myself. So that shit don't really mean nothing. That's why a lot of dudes will try to joke shit off though. And they'll try to go and they'll say, get your girl, bro, get your girl. But if they simping, they ain't gonna get their damn girl. They're gonna get you. I don't even like them group outings, to be honest with you, anymore, because I know that this shit can go down. And usually their simping will come in when y'all are maybe hanging out and it's a group thing. And when that goes down, their ego starts to come out. They essentially are simping to stay in good standing with their chick. And while some may think that this has to do with a woman, what this often proves is that these types of folks will also not stand on business in other situations. Or maybe they'll selectively stand on things where you don't know whether or not they're going to have your back in situations where they know that you are 100% right even. And then they'll even get into what I would call parental simping. So let me explain that. What I mean by that is let your mama do some greasy shit to you or do some shit that's out of order, out of pocket, and you go and you tell them. This is the type of Negro that will often come around talking about some, well, that's your mama, that's your daddy. They'll be on that dismissive ass bullshit. They think that just because they are familiar with your parent and have been deemed the adopted son, they can project their own relationship experiences onto you and lecture you on how to deal with them, while also at the same time dismissing and ignoring your lived experience. And this is the full essence of what I mean by blurred lines, y'all. You have to understand this Negro won't back you up when it counts. He'll let you get clowned, he'll pile on, he'll laugh with everybody else, he'll throw you under the bus, he'll act brand new, he'll let disrespect slide with you because he wants to stay good with the room and the situation and the vibe. But if you get out of line, all of a sudden he's a true homie who kept it real with you. Watch out for these folks, y'all. I'm not saying cut them all the way off the first time that you see something, but just notice and peep the pattern, because you need to recognize when this happens and when that person really got to go. So when I say that black men need to avoid simps or to avoid becoming simps, I'm not just talking about avoiding corny ass dudes. I'm talking about avoiding dudes who reward dysfunction, mistake silence for wisdom, confuse explanation with excuse making, betraying loyalty for cheap approval, and protecting bad behavior by demonizing black men who try to address and confront it. A simp doesn't just fail you, he helps create an environment where failing you becomes acceptable. And that is exactly why these types are dangerous. Now he is actively helping harmful systems function. Now he is throwing other black men under the bus publicly because he believes hierarchy and sweeping shit under the rug are more important than truth. That's the real problem here, because now the simp is not just embarrassing himself. He is helping create a hierarchy where poor behavior is protected, bad decisions are rewarded, and black men who speak up get demonized as the actual problem. Simps defend the wrong things. They submit to the wrong people and they punish the wrong men. One of the superpowers that a black man needs to make sure they're administering is a well-nuanced ability to be direct and to give people accountability. But this is something that we need to apply to every area of our lives. And we as pro-blacks even have to ask ourselves, if this motherfucker won't stand on business when it comes to women or when it comes to these different systems that they're dealing with, who's to say that they would do it when we're talking about tackling the system of white supremacy? Before we get up out of here, I want to ask y'all this question. Which out of the three simps have you seen the most? Tell me your story or a story that involves that type of simp, and let's go ahead and get this discussion started. Before we get up out of here, I would love it if you were to join my membership channel. I have 3 different tiers that you can take advantage of, but the one that would be the most effective would be to join the premium tier, where I talk about the projects that I have going on and things related to the Cool Colas brand outside of what you see on the main channel. Whatever you are able to contribute is a big help to the Cool Colas brand and its growth. But either way, I'm looking forward to inviting you and welcoming you to the exclusive Cool Click. All right, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and I definitely will have more to come in the future. So make sure you stay tuned. In the meantime, I would love it if you like this video, subscribe, share it, and also hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. Other than that, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out, y'all.